I asked 240 Mandarin learners what their biggest problem was, and they said struggling to speak Mandarin naturally. And so in this video, I'm going to be explaining exactly why you struggle to speak Mandarin naturally and the system that you can use to fix this. Let's start with why you struggle with speaking. To explain this, I want you to picture 3 cups. The first cup represents what I like to call robotic speech. This is like, the chunks, the vocabulary, the grammar patterns that you kind of know, but you'd have to translate in your head in order to get them out, and it's very slow and requires a lot of effort. The second cup is hesitant speech. This is stuff that you can save natural phrasing, but again, it's very effortful and potentially requires some pausing and, self-correcting along the way in order to get this out. And the third and final cup is confident speech. These are the grammar patterns, the sentence structures, the chunks, the vocabulary that you've internalized so deeply that you can just call on and use automatically in conversation without really having to think too much at all. And here's the problem. The majority of the time you go to speak Mandarin in the moment, what you're doing is drawing from the third cup, the confident speech cup. And for most learners, what's in the third cup is an awful lot less than what's in the first cup. You might genuinely know hundreds, if not thousands of words and loads of different grammar rules, but they're all stuck in the first cup, so you're never able to use them properly and easily and confidently in conversation. You might even be able to understand all these thousands of words and grammar rules if you were to listen to them in a podcast, and that might be quite easy for you. But the moment you have a conversation, you freeze up and you're drawing from the third cup, which just doesn't have enough in there. And you fall back to using what's in the first or the second cup, and as a result of that, you sound robotic, you freeze up, you're slow, even though technically you know far more than that. And when this happens, learners tend to make one of 2 mistakes. First, they assume the problem is that they just do not have enough vocabulary and grammar, and so they go back to textbooks, they go back to word lists and vocab lists, and try their absolute best to add more. And adding more to what? The first cup. That's pouring into something that's already pretty full. That's not the real problem here. And the real problem is actually how much has made it from the robotic cup to the confident cup. And the second one, and this is the one that even might trip up some more advanced learners, that's they just assume they need more input, listening, more watching, and hoping that eventually one day everything will just click into place and it will be fine and speaking will feel really easy. Now, input is definitely important, and you should definitely be doing a lot of listening and reading as much as you can. But for this specific problem, again, it's actually filling the robotic cup, but just from a different angle, and maybe potentially filling the second or the third cup, but a lot more slowly than the methods we're going to talk about in a bit. So if you want to speak more naturally and confidently, forget about vocabulary for a bit. It's most likely that you already have a decent enough vocabulary in order to have an okay conversation in Mandarin. It's just that the problem is the vocabulary is sat in the wrong cup. So here are things that actually are going to move the needle for you and are actually going to move things from that first cup to the final cup. Number 1, daily low stakes reps of using things that you already know. It can even just be a few minutes a day narrating your life in Mandarin, going around the room naming objects around the room, giving your opinion on something. This is forcing you to recall and retrieve material that's stuck in the robotic cup such that eventually it becomes more and more automatic and gets into the third cup. I actually built the Chunky Chinese Fluency Trainer to do just this, low stakes reps under a little bit of pressure on using sentences that are exactly the right level for you in order to practice speaking.
还是休息一下比较好，你看起来太累了，还是别去了比较好，还是告诉他比较好。
Number 2, a weekly deliberate confidence session. This is where once a week, you pick a topic and you just record yourself speaking about it in Mandarin, and you don't stress too much about making mistakes, sounding slightly off, sounding unnatural, all of these things. You try and give yourself not very much pressure and just trying to build your confidence. This is uncomfortable the first few times you do it, because although you're not worrying too much about what you're saying, you kind of are, because you're doing it in front of a camera, right? Or you're doing it to your phone. And number 3, regular real conversations. Having a call with a tutor, or even better, language exchange partners, real friends that you can go and meet with and have conversations with. This is the best kind of practice, to get things automatic. You can even use AI for this part. If you were to use AI, what I'd highly suggest you do is either you get AI to keep pushing back on you, keep asking you more and more questions and asking you to elaborate on what you've just said. And this will really, really push you to your limits of where your third cup is, and as a result of that, be moving more from the first and the second cup into the third cup. If you already know more Mandarin than you actually can use in conversation, then I'd highly recommend checking out my 7-day free email course and my chunking PDFs, which will teach you really common sentence starters and sentence patterns in order to get your speaking skills up to speed fast. If you're interested, you can go and check them out. There's a link in the description. If your issue is more that you actually, when you go to speak, you're sounding robotic and sounding a bit like a textbook instead of like a native speaker, then actually what you might need is to check out this video next, where I break down exactly how you can use chunks to help you get out of these bad habits. I'll see you inside.